Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Mario Creators Podcast. We are sitting here with MarkAlarm, the creator of Celeste SMC and various other ROM hacks. How are you doing, MarkAlarm?
I'm
Uh,
doing well. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I just got back from a baseball game, actually. This is the Pittsburgh Pirates. They lost.
Tragic.
It was. Are you guys into baseball at all? Do either of you watch any sports?
No
No,
sports for me.
None.
yeah, same.
See, I don't consider myself a sports guy, but something about baseball and football. I guess I'm a sports guy, really. I don't fucking know. Um, yeah. Anyways, Red, do you want to start?
Sure. I guess we'll start with the personal stuff.
Yeah,
So,
let's really dig deep here.
yeah. So you're in college right now,
Yes.
and you're going for, I'm guessing, computer programming?
Yeah, I'm going for computer science.
That's awesome. Yeah, I just got through that degree. But you created Celeste SMC, obviously, but like other ROM hacks, like while in school. That's kind of astounding, first of all. Like, how
Thank
is it,
you.
like, balancing that? Was that, like, insanely challenging, or, like, did you just not have a social life for a while?
So, with Celeste SMC, the creation process of that actually went between high school and college.
Wow.
So, um, we can start with this. So, the whole reason why Celeste SMC, like, even came to be, really,
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to start messing around with programming on for Super Mario World, working with assembly, and I thought, oh, let me try to make something simple. So I thought I was at the time I was playing a lot of Celeste, so I thought, like, could I make the dash from Celeste into Mario World? Took a little bit of fiddling around, but I got something very rudimentary working, um, and fast forward, I eventually got invited to work on a level for the Blind Kaiser race
Right.
for Games Done Quick,
I
or
remember
Summer Games
seeing
Done
that.
Quick 2019, and that level was a Celeste themed level where I took the dash that I made, albeit with some fixes, took the wall jump, and said, let's make a level out of it. And the reception was overwhelmingly positive, and people were saying, oh, it'd be really cool to see a whole hack themed around this. And I had been thinking, and I was making other Celeste assets in Mario World at the time, not really thinking about making a whole hack. I just wanted to make the assets and mess around and probably put them out eventually. But I said, maybe it would be a cool idea to make a whole hack. And then it took another 3 years, but it eventually finished.
That's so cool. Yeah, I remember seeing that on YouTube. Uh, Everybody playing it, and it was so cool.
I remember scrolling down to the bottom of the ROM hack race spreadsheet and seeing 30XX or whatever when Celeste SMC was gonna come out.
Yeah.
So, like,
Go on.
no, I was just gonna just ask, like, so you learned assembly through Mario, or did you know it beforehand?
I learned assembly through hacking Super Mario World. Yes,
That's cool. And did you know any programming before that, like
I
object
did.
oriented? Oh, you did? Okay, cool.
I did know programming beforehand. I did Java in high school.
Hmm.
I did some other like messing around programming. It's not like I messed around with like Scratch when I was much younger, which isn't, I guess, whether or not you consider that programming is up to whoever's listening. But that was probably one of my earliest experiences with working with it. But Java was my first language.
What did you
Um,
think of Java? I personally hated it when I took it in college. I did not care for it.
So when I took it in high school, I didn't care for it because of my teacher, where he didn't really teach.
Hmm.
So I was kind of left on my own to figure things out, and being left on my own to figure things out when I was fairly new to programming wasn't the best thing in the world. But I've recently been relearning it in college, and I'm enjoying it more because I actually am being taught well for it, and I'm understanding it better. So I enjoy it. It's not too bad.
Cool. Do you prefer like coding in assembly over coding in like an object-oriented program?
Assembly is my favorite language.
Really? That's so
I
interesting.
love having total control over the processor. It's so, I don't know if it's like a weird power trip type thing or what it is, but man, like just knowing what every single thing is going to do is such a blessing to me.
That's interesting because I'm like the exact opposite. I'm like, all right, I don't want to deal with memory addresses and whatever. Like, I just kind of want to write the like code to solve the puzzle. I guess you're still doing that in assembly, but it's just way more like nitty gritty than I want to get. But
Yeah, that's fair.
yeah, that's to each their own, man. That's cool. Like, world needs people like you. So, and it's perfect how it works for SMW and
Oh, for
that whole
sure.
thing.
I mean, granted, like it's not to say that I don't dislike other languages. Like I've programmed in Python, I've done Java, I've done C#, and like I like those languages. It's not that I dislike them, but just having as much control as I do with assembly, while debugging is probably the biggest pain in the butt.
Right. Which
with
I'm gonna.
assembly.
I should just ask you that now. Like, when I was watching, just doing research for this or whatever, I was watching Grand Pooh Bear play Through Your Hack, and he was in the library, and he got to that screen that said, like...
Celestial Resort. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Like, it had... Okay, so here, I have a paper here. It said ROM SPY ADXP, break parameter, player X, level number, current sprite index, attempting stack at, and then the SP value is there, and then the current inputs that were being held. So, like, when you see that, what do you think? Like, what do you go to? Are you just like, is there anything like blaringly obvious that you're like, oh, the SP value's F10, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, so part of it, sometimes I actually don't know what is helpful from that information, and I've talked to other people that have written that. So what that is, for those that don't know, is it's a crash handler, where with modern languages, a crash is just an error in a console log, and you go, oh, I forgot a semicolon. But in assembly, you don't have that. What you get is the processor running God knows what. Like, you don't know what's going to happen. But with the Super Nintendo, there's a special command where if it gets ran, it'll jump to some part of memory, and you can write your own custom code there. In Mario World, it's not set to do anything, and if it's not set to do anything, it'll just endlessly do unknown stuff to the point where it crashes. But when you take control of that, and another reason why I like assembly is when you're able to take control of that, you can do stuff with it. So I was able to say, oh, I know the game crashed now. But talking to people that have also written crash handlers, just having the ROM location that the crash happened, having all of the registers on screen, and having the level number, for example, like having all that information is nice, sure, but not being able to see every single instruction that happened up until that point makes some debugging impossible. Okay. So I can look at that screen and say, oh, I see what happened there. Like in Celestial Resort especially, like I know some parts are like, oh, this part of the screen, for whatever reason, spawn sprites in a weird way, or this thing triggers and causes it to happen, so I can kind of understand it. But there are other points where I see it and I'm like, I don't know why that happened. Oh well. And that's about it.
And you can't. So I'm sure there's still like things out there that you're just like, well, I don't know what causes this, but hopefully it never happens or something like that.
That's kind of my take on things now, where I'm at a point where the hack's been out for almost 4 months now, and people have had their crashes, people have had their unfortunate experiences with it, but overall it's mostly fine, and I
And
figured
you
it's
said that
good enough.
you said in the interview with Grand Pooh Bear that you try to make it so if it crashes, they don't lose like all their progress, which I think
Right.
was a great approach to that.
Right. Because with like the strawberries and the crystal hearts, what I did with those was rather than requiring the player to on the overworld get the save prompt, click save, and actually have their progress saved. What I did with the strawberries and the hearts was as soon as it collects, as soon as you get the little sparkle and the one-up noise for like the strawberries, it's saved. As soon as you get that sparkle, you can reset your console and you'll still have the strawberry. So I did it in that
Nice.
way so that if the game were to crash, oh, I lost my checkpoint, but oh well. And that was the other thing that I did where I wrote a custom checkpoint system to where you can load like major chunks of a level like from the overworld rather than having to start from the very beginning every single time.
Oh, okay. Yeah, nice. And that's like I think you call them like major checkpoints, right?
Yeah, so rather than because most Kaizo levels in Mario World are just like one checkpoint and then you're done, or some will have a couple depending like if it's a 5-room castle or if it wants to be a longer level or if it has a boss, but generally they're pretty short. They have one checkpoint and if you miss it, oh well. But with the levels in Celeste SMC, they are upwards of at least 10 checkpoints.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of progress to be lost if you're halfway through the level and, oh, I got a game crash, or, oh, I accidentally reset my console. Or then the other major reason was, let's say I missed a strawberry and I want to go back. I don't want to play the entire level to go get that back. So I want to load for maybe the halfway point and then start looking from there.
Awesome.
So
yeah.
just quality of life things I wanted to do just so that it was like not as bad on a player. Also for like testing, it was a lot easier to just jump into that rather than having to have a specific pipe and throwing it in the overworld or anything like that.
Right. Yeah, that's super nice. Like, I watch Kink and my friend Mike, T Mike, like when they're making hacks, and Mike like always plays from the beginning every time he's like testing something, and it just takes him forever to get to the part he wants to test that. But I bet that was really nice to just like have those little, checkpoints that you can just like instantly warp to for testing.
For sure.
I'm sorry.
No, you go first.
I was gonna say, so talking about things in the game maybe that didn't work correctly, was anything like planned in terms of cheese for speedrunning, or was it all just completely accidentally found by speedrunners?
There was plenty of cheese and plenty of speedrun strats that I knew of before the game got released. There was a lot.
Yeah, I figured that much.
Yeah, because there were some things where I put in, like for example, the one tile spike tunnel in chapter 1 where you have to dash up rather than going to the left and then coming back. That was a very blatantly obvious. You could dash up through here and save a second. It was a very intentional design choice, and I knew that, and I did that. There were some things where, like for example, in Summit, there's cheese that you can do with another one tile gap that I didn't know what its purpose could have been, but I said, if I have a gap here, it might be useful for something somewhere down the road. I'm going to throw it in there because it's not going to change your first playthrough. You're not going to use that for anything, but it might have a use. It might, and we'll see what happens. And it eventually got used in a skip, and I thought, cool, that actually had a use. I'm glad I put that there. And then there are other things. The biggest thing is what the speedrun community is calling a limbo, where you're dashing underneath the screen, but you're using a diagonal up dash to get back into the level so that you're not dead by the the kill floor or whatever.
Yeah.
So
I saw like
bottomless pit.
I saw like a 15-minute task on it too. That was just the most bananas thing ever. Like,
Yeah,
they were like
the,
going under and like doing mid-airs with the shell and like, yeah, it was nuts.
Yeah, the TAS is by XHF01X. Shoutouts to him. I just want to make sure that he gets credit for it.
Right.
He it's such an entertaining TAS. He makes amazing TASs to begin with, but that one was just really entertaining to watch. So if you haven't seen it, definitely check it out. It's really good.
I'll put a link to that down in the description below so people can check it out if they haven't seen it.
Right, and please
yeah.
like interrupt and give credit to like anybody who deserves it on this, like as we go.
Absolutely. As we go, I'll definitely shout out relevant people, and at the end I'll thank others that didn't get a chance.
For sure. Do you got a question, King?
No, guy asked the last one.
Okay. When you were talking about the detection for like, this is just another programming one. This won't all be programming, just so you know. But the detection for if it crashed, right? Is that essentially just like a Stack Overflow, or is it something more than that?
Well, a Stack Overflow can cause that. But with the Super Nintendo, there's a special instruction, the break instruction BRK, and this is going to get a little more technical, but the associated instruction number, so every assembly instruction is mapped to some hex value. So, like, for example, if I'm going to load 10, it's going to be A9, which A9 represents load, and then I have 10 immediately after, and that 10 remains constant in the code. BRK's number is 0. And the special thing about 0 is that gets filled out throughout the entire rest of the ROM. So you have all of your code, all of your data, and that's going to be a bunch of numbers that you don't know. But everything else is going to be a 0. So if the Super Nintendo jumps to some unknown area in your ROM, or it's running in a mode that it shouldn't be, where the Super Nintendo can run in an 8-bit and a 16-bit mode, and that changes how instructions are read, blah, 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 you're more likely to run into a 0 instruction than you are anything else, because the entire rest of the ROM is filled with 0. So if it hits a 0, it runs this break instruction, and that break instruction is the key to having it handle a crash, because that shouldn't normally happen. But if it does happen, we can take control of it.
So, this sounds very, very technical, and I know very, very little about ASM personally. So, when you were learning, what kind of, in case anyone that's like watching wants to learn how to write assembly language for Super Mario World, what resources did you use? Because I know that there's like the ASM workshop on SMW Central, but what other resources did you use?
The ASM workshop is my go-to, honestly. If you're looking to specifically hack SMW, Super Mario World, I would absolutely recommend the 2019 ASM workshop by the ASM mods at the time, and some other people. That is, in my opinion, like the best resource to getting started, and I even still reference it if I like get stuck on something or forget about some instruction.
Right. Something like trivial information that you just need to look up every time. Yeah.
Right. There's a couple of tutorials, I believe, by Arsanio. There's one for generic Super Nintendo programming, and then there's another one for Super Mario World programming. Those two are also very good resources. And then another good resource is checking out, like, code that people have written for Super Mario World. If you're looking to hack the game, see what people have made, see how it works, and like dig a little bit deeper into what's going on.
Who are your main people that you want to like shout out right now that have code out there that you referenced and were like, oh my gosh, this is crazy?
I'll first give thanks to Kaiserman or Thomas and Dida IV. Because they were pretty big mentors when I was first learning how to program ASM. They helped with like the first steps of me learning things. So I want to give thanks to them.
I follow Dida IV on Twitter, and she posted like some of the craziest crap I've ever seen with like the sprites like exploding, like just like blocks that you throw up and they just explode like bombs. Like, it's so cool.
You know, she's on hiatus right now, and according to her Discord, and I was using a lot of her resources when making, and I felt really bad, so I subbed to her Patreon, which I highly recommend doing if you use her resources, because there's just like an entire extensive library, like.
Yeah, a lot of D4's resources aren't on SMW Central. She's made so much and has like such a massive backlog that like putting things I'm also speaking on behalf of her right now, so this take it with a grain of salt. But she has such a massive backlog of things that she's made that she can't put everything onto Super Mario World Central because everything has to get moderated and gone through, and the queues right now are not too great. They haven't been for a while, even when I was moderating. But it takes time to get moderated, so having all of that would just be a pain for everyone.
So yeah, you were a moderator. Like,
yes.
What? Why did you stop? Did you just were too busy with school or something? Or?
It was a combination of things, but it was primarily just too busy with life and school, and I just wanted to take a break. I'm gonna consider maybe just doing a helper position. I don't want to make that totally official yet, so don't like go running around saying, "Oh, Mark's gonna join the staff team again." But I'm thinking about maybe helping around.
I already tweeted it.
Awesome. Yeah, maybe helping out with ASM resources, not being a whole mod, but we'll see how things go because I'm still pretty busy.
I can't remember what I applied for when they were looking for helpers. I think it was just the 4 mods, but I got rejected. They're like, they just said no.
Boo.
I did apply to be a helper last time they were asking for helpers.
It's a thankless job.
Yeah. And I said like, oh, I help a bunch of people. And they were like, sorry, we've decided to decline your application. However, we think you have a lot of promise for the future.
Yeah, so definitely reapply again at some point.
Yeah, next time they have something open.
Also, real quick, I'll also want to thank World Peace and Vitor Vieja, because they also both helped me with some other like minor things with learning ASM. World Peace helped me figure out how cluster sprites work, which birthed the customizable cluster bullet shooter.
I was just working with that. Yeah, that is Dida made that, huh?
Yeah, that's probably one of the resources I'm most proud of, just because of like the sheer amount of things that you can do with it. Because it can be very simple, but you can also do a whole lot with it. And World Peace helped me. This is the cluster bullet shooter.
Okay.
Where you can have like 20 bullets on screen, no problem. The game can handle it. And that's all using just regular Super Mario World. Like, you just need to insert the custom sprite and you're good to go. Nothing fancy or extra going on.
I put the link in the chat, Red, if you want to take a look at it.
I thought of like a gun that you shoot like bullet bills out of that Mario runs around with. Like, that's the first thing that came to my head.
Didn't Sweet Dude make that? Is that Sweet Dude's own thing from Things? Or did someone else make that gun?
I'm not too sure. I mean, it might have been in Things, but
it was. It's part of it was one of the. It was like a Western level. I can't remember.
Oh, I see. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
And it activates like turn blocks and stuff like that, or?
No, those are blocks that are always spinning.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. I think that's just the reference for the spawn.
Yeah, the actual sprite for the shooter is invisible. The thing that you actually care about are the things coming out of it.
Okay, cool.
So I've seen those used in some pretty cursed ways, right?
Yeah.
I'd say a lot of the time. Was that part of Fruit Dealer, or was that something else?
The original cluster bullets was a part of Cooler Cruel 12 Tubular. and by extension, Fruit Dealer. But those resources never made it public, or at least in a way that could be used easily. But I wanted it to be usable by people because I thought it was a really cool idea. So when I first made it just for myself, just to make a level out of it for ROM hack races, but I eventually made it more customizable, accessible, cleaned up the code, and then submitted it eventually. I actually have a 1.1 of it, but it got rejected because I failed to account for a few things, and I just haven't bothered to resubmit it. So 1.0 is on the site, but you can get 1.1 on my GitHub, along with a few other things that I haven't released.
I'll put that link in the description too. On the topic of that specific shooter, it is insanely customizable, and it's very easy to use too. I was actually kind of surprised because there's a lot of stuff that people throw on SMW Central that's not really commented that well, or when it is commented, it's not very helpful. But that is some of the best commenting, and it was so easy to figure out how to handle the extra bytes, and it was right, extra bytes or extra bits, extra bytes.
Yeah, it's extra bytes.
Yeah, okay. And yeah, it was just a really easy sprite to figure out how to use, and I used it in a level. I used it for a cursed reason that I'm not proud of, but it'll be great. People will love it. Probably not.
Speaking of like customized things that you've made, so I'm just gonna like rattle off some stuff that I was impressed by in the Celeste.smc, and I just kind of want to let me know which ones I forget, but I just kind of want to know like how long these like took to make and stuff like that, and like challenges maybe that you've had with them.
Sure.
But, like, so like strawberries that follow you around, like that one was crazy, and I noticed that like the cosmic, you could have probably used some of the code from Cosmic Mario, the one that follows you and like kills you if you touch him, and it does like all the path that you take.
Right. So I actually want to make a note of specifically the Cosmic Mario. That's one of the few assets in Celeste.smc that I did not make.
Oh, okay.
I want to give credit to LX5, I believe, for making that, because he put that out for I think it was some point in C3. But that was a sprite that he made. And
what do you mean C3? Sorry, what is this?
It's a SMW Central semi-annual like event for just sharing resources and like things that people have worked on. So there's like an ASM showcase where it's like, hey, look at these things that I've made, and that was one of the things that LX5 made. Wow. And I figured I was going to make it eventually, but LX5 made it. I was like, I mean, this resource is really good. I could make my own, or I could just use the better one that already exists.
Right.
So I chose to take the path of least resistance for that one. But a lot of the assets in Celeste.smc were things that haven't been made before, so I had a lot of uncharted territory ahead of me.
And you've entered C3 quite a few times. It says you have 6 medals here. 2 bronze, 2 silver, and 2 gold. Which one were you most proud of out of all of
that's
these?
A fantastic question that I need to look at what trophies those are.
You can share your screen for this one, King.
Yeah,
I got it pulled up. So I have so the gold trophies were the most anticipated SMW hack for Winter C3, along with the best trailer. And then the silvers that's something completely different, I think. The best trailer and most anticipated hack, I think, are my favorite. I mean, they are the golds of the 6, yes. But I think that those are my favorite out of the C3 ones, just because it was like finally like the end stages of, yes, this is going to be finished and wrapped up and released within the coming weeks. At that time, it felt like an actual sense of, I am almost complete, I'm almost done with this. and to see the community's reception of, wow, we think this is really super cool. Both the hack itself and the trailer that I made. And the trailer got incredible attention. I mean, even Celeste, like, the Celeste, like, retweeted the trailer, and as well as Maddie, like, just having that attention was incredible to me. It meant a lot that, like, people were so excited for it. And then I also have a most of the best ASM resource of 2020, which was the cluster shooter, going back to that. And that was my first ever ASM resource submitted to the site, and for it to win best resource, I just thought was awesome. I mean, I did spend a lot of time on it and wanted to make it as useful as possible, but I didn't think it would get that far.
So,
Congrats.
when making Celeste.smc, did you anticipate it to be as huge as it is, or were you expecting it to kind of...
Absolutely not. I thought it was going to be a 6-month project tops. The naive me at GDQ was like, oh, people want to see a full hack of this. That shouldn't take that long. It'll be like a few months, and I'll put something cool out. And then I sat with it for another 3 years until it eventually got finished. But it's fine. It was worth it. It was cool, but I did not expect it to take as long as it did.
Did you expect it to blow up, like, in popularity as much as it did, too?
Not really. I mean, I guess near the end, once it was, like, fully finished and released, it, like, kind of made sense. Like, oh, it's an actually finished project. Like, it's going to get attention because it's done. But while I was working on it, like, there was a lot of times where I was just like, is this really worth working on? Is this really worth finishing and doing? Because it was very taxing on me, because I worked on it pretty much nonstop for most of its development. Like, there was a point where, like, I only took, I think, a couple weeks off total during that entire span, where I would spend, like, I'm trying to think, but there was only a few times where I spent more than a week not working on the project. One was I had to go to a wedding, and I was out of the country, so I didn't have access to my computer to begin with, so I didn't have a choice. But the other time was I took 1 week to just say, I am so mentally just done with this hack that I don't want to see or touch it or look at it or do any part with it, just for my own mental sanity. But other than that, I was working on it basically nonstop.
That's some dedication. Like, I've experienced that, like, to some extent with I made a Super World and Super Mario Maker 2, and I mean, there's just days where you don't want to, do it. You don't want to design a level, but, like, you just kind of do it anyways because you're doing it, and, like, you have to get down, like, theme or something, or test out something new, and the entire time, like, you put in all this work, and I know what you mean, like, is it going to be worth it in the end? And the entire time I'm about to release it, and it's like, you're super excited about it, but the only thing that you can think of before, at least I did, like, did you ever have this thought of, like, man, I hope I don't die, like, a week before this I release it or get to release it, because, like, all that work will never get to be experienced by anybody.
That's something you actually, like, thought cognitively? Like,
Yes.
You really hope you don't die?
Yeah, I was like, I hope I don't just, like, die randomly.
I actually did think about that quite a bit. I was like, like, is it, like, am I gonna be alive by the time this is done? I don't know. Am I already in my, like, late years of my life? Like, who knows? Anything can happen on any given day.
Exactly.
So,
it worked out in the end, and that's all I can really say. It worked out.
Yeah.
So, hypothetically, let's just say you're in the middle of this project, right? You're working on Celeste.smc, and the unforeseen happens, and you, like, get mauled by a bear or something.
Let's say hypothetically you die.
Yeah, hypothetically you die. Who do you entrust to finish Celeste.smc in its half-finished Frankenstein
Who do you
state?
put in your will to patch this up?
I don't entrust anybody to finish it. I would have it be released as is in an incomplete state.
Wow, like a beetle.
I think that it would be its best representation rather than it being like a partnered project or like, I mean, I guess like if Maddie allegedly wanted to work on it and finish it, that'd be kind of cool, I guess. But I think at the end of the day, like if I were to die, having it in an incomplete form to show like this was the work that was being done, like it I think would carry an entirely different meaning. Like it would be a cool project nonetheless, but it would also have that attached caveat of this will never be finished, and what is made is what you will be able to experience and nothing more. And I think that caveat kind of would bring an interesting point to it.
This got like really dark.
Yeah,
it is really dark, and I'm honestly not a fan. but I mean, I think that's how it would be best done.
Right.
It's interesting. It's interesting that even came up, really. But hey,
Yeah.
now we know. Now everyone knows what would happen. So
Yeah,
Celeste
now everyone knows I was thinking about death while working on this.
No, it just happens because you invest so much time into it, and you're like,
Right.
man, I want people to experience this, and like I don't know, whatever. It's fine.
Maybe I've never worked on a project long enough to understand the feeling, because I've never, like, I released 2 ROM hacks, right, and I've never felt that. I mean, mine were like subpar, right, like a 4 exit hack and a 10 exit hack, and nothing like comparable to Celeste SMC.
But I mean, we all know the infamous, it's only 9 exits.
Yeah. So let's talk about your older stuff on Super Mario World Central, specifically Super Tesla World.
Shoutouts to my boy, the Pokey Tesla, who doesn't actually go by that anymore. They go by Blake G.
You went by a different name back then too, huh?
I did. I used to go by Minimawile 303.
Big fan of Pokemon, are you?
I mean, I still am a big fan of Pokemon. Mawile was and is my favorite. And the 303 just happens to be its Pokédex number.
Oh, okay. I thought that was just like a random. I thought
no,
like,
it was a very intentional number. I wanted Minimawile, and that name was somehow taken. So I appended a 303 and called it a day.
Perfect.
So you say it's in the comments. I was looking through the comments, and you said that it's terrible and irredeemable. Why do you think that about your own project? Is it just like where you are now?
I don't think that. I know that.
Oh god.
It's not a good hack. I mean, like, you can look at it from a back then perspective of what what older Kaizo hacks looked like, because you didn't have all this you didn't really have all this custom ASM and music and all these fancy things going on. So, like, what did you have to look at back then? It was really just the OG Kaizos, Dram World, Panga World, and a few others. At least when I was first looking at it. So I had a lot of inspiration, I think mainly from like the Kaizo trilogy, just because that's all I really knew at the time.
I was gonna play it before this interview, and I was like,
Don't.
Oh god, I saw that it was like inspired by Kaizo 1 and Kaizo 2, and I was like, maybe I'll just watch a task of it instead, or a video.
Yeah, don't play my older. If you're gonna play any of my older works, play Lord Pickle World. That one I'm actually like proud of.
I mean, of everybody's first levels are terrible, and in Mario Maker 2 you can like delete your levels and like nobody can ever know about them, right? But like when you put a hack out there, it's kind of there forever unless you like go through like this deletion process. But even then, it's still in like an archive, I hear.
So the thing is, you can't get your hacks deleted off SMW Central. It's an archive. It stays there. There's very, very, very rare circumstances where they will ever take an approved hack and retroactively take it down. It's very, very uncommon.
So would you, if you could right now, would you delete it?
Yeah. Oh, 100%. 100%.
Because like part of me, like with my old crappy levels, like once you start hitting like there's like 100 level limit for whatever reason in Mario Maker 2, and like once you start hitting that limit and you don't want to make another account just for like uploading levels, you start deleting like old crappier levels like that. And now I wish I would have just like made a new account and just kept them there for like historical purposes. Like, look at how shitty my my levels used to be, you know. But
Yeah. Do you look
but you
back?
wouldn't have that.
Do you look back on that stuff and feel like accomplished for how far you've come with both like making your own custom assets and also level design in general? Or do you just like
So
look back and cringe?
I do both. Well, I'll be totally honest. Like, I mean, I look back on it and say, wow, like that's a hack that I made 5 years ago, and look where I am now. Like, I made a pretty popular hack, and it like got into GDQ, and it was so well received and all that, and it got me some pretty cool opportunities. Like, I look at that and say, that's cool progression from it to start as a thing that I was in, like, freshman year of high school. I was like, oh, let me see what this whole lunar magic thing is in Super Mario World ROM hacking. Granted, I started out playing Mario Maker, and that's a thing that not everybody knows about me, but I originally played Mario Maker. Mario Maker 1 specifically. But I was like, oh, what's this Super Mario World hacking thing? It's a thing that I can do on my computer? That's interesting. Let me check this out. And then for the time, I did both, but I eventually fell in love with hacking Mario World, and I'm here now.
I'm probably gonna switch over to at some point, but I don't know. It's just so comfy to like sit down and play Mario Maker on the Switch and not like deal with like files and stuff like hard programming things. Like especially when I like do programming for a living, it's like hard to
That's
do
fair.
that at night. But whatever. I mean, I'll probably end up doing it. But yeah.
So I was gonna talk about GDQ a little bit. This is your second GDQ event, right?
It's the second one that I'm going to attend, yes.
So how does it like feel to have something get into GDQ? Like I know you and Red both are going to GDQ this year, right? Are you still going? Or?
I'm still planning on going, yes. I'm currently fundraising for it, but
Yeah. If you want to promote that, go for it.
Yeah.
I'll throw down.
Yeah, so I'm fundraising to get to GDQ right now. I'm a decent chunk raised, but I still have a decent chunk to go. So I have a list of incentives that I'm going to do for however much money I raise. The next incentive, I believe, is I'm going to have a community vote for a Super Nintendo game for me to start doing research in and hacking. So something that isn't Mario World, but a new Super Nintendo title for people that like a general interest. Like let's say a lot of people really want to see like more Zelda, like Link to the Past stuff. I'll put research and time into hacking A Link to the Past and looking into its code, seeing if I can make custom assets for it, or Mega Man X, or Super Metroid, or Mario Kart, like just something different.
You know, I dabbled with the Super Metroid editor a little bit because I was gonna make a hack, and then I saw how much work. Their editor for that, like their equivalent to Lunar Magic, is like ass. It's terrible.
I
It's
mean,
just
yeah.
I understand that it's like by just one guy, kind of like how Lunar Magic is, and it's just like a community thing. But they don't have the same like resources as us, and I think it'd be very, very cool to see the Super Metroid ROM hacking community get a better editor, or maybe not a better editor, but a more user-friendly editor comparable to what we have with Lunar Magic being as extensive and as user-friendly as it is. Well, I say user-friendly, but, you know, it's not the most intuitive thing, but it is, like, at the end of the day, very user-friendly compared to what other people have for their projects.
Yeah, like at the end of the day, like Lunar Magic still may be hard to use, but when you compare it to everything else that's out there, it is insanely easy.
Yeah, like the things that I think of, obviously this Metroid editor, and then the SMB3 editor. Those are the two main things that I think of, and the SMB3 editor it's intuitive in its own right, but it's also very hard to figure out if you don't already have that prerequisite of Lunar Magic.
Right.
In my opinion.
I was gonna ask, like, what, on the same vein of like, what things, either growing up, old and new, what platformers really inspired you, like in terms of level design and how you went about making your hack?
So, well, for Celeste SMC specifically, we'll knock out the easy ones. Played a lot of Super Mario World, played a lot of Celeste. Really enjoy them. Probably my two favorite platformers of all time. I'm pretty sure that Super Mario World is actually like one of the first video games I ever played at my grandparents' house. But the first Mario game that I like really played and beat was New Super Mario Bros. DS. That was like my first like game console when I was much younger. And then I played, and I was mainly in the New Super Mario Bros. Series with games, but I still really liked Super Mario World because I had memories of it playing it as a kid, and I eventually was able to like find Mario ROM hacking and kind of rebirth that enjoyment of the game.
So, real quick, if you don't mind me asking, I can cut this out if it's too much, but how old are you?
I'm 20.
20. Oh, so we're about the same age. Yeah. I just turned 21.
Nice.
Yeah. I figured as much just because of how you're talking about being a freshman in high school around the same time as I was, and because you released Tesla World in 2018, I think.
Yeah, I think it first came out in 2017, but an update came out in 2018. Yeah. But nevertheless, yeah.
I have my notes wrong, but
Kink, you should ask the twitlonger question that you wrote.
Let me find it.
The motivation.
About your twitlonger.
Which one? I think there's been a few.
The most recent one. I found it. You posted a twitlonger basically saying you haven't had motivation to work on anything relating to SMW. Has that changed at all, given like Celeste getting into GDQ, or have you decided to move on to something else, and what might that be?
Right. So at that time, I was going through a lot, and I'm not going to get into what all that was, but I was going through a lot. Right. And I needed to just escape the internet for a while. So I basically left everything that I was involved in, like, internet-wise. I didn't really chat in any Twitch streams. I left a bunch of Discords that I was in. I abandoned projects. I left everything. I needed an escape for a while, just to like clear the head, focus on me, focus on life.
Yeah, sometimes you need that. Nice reboot.
Good to take breaks and everything.
Yeah. And what was it that I didn't want to do Mario World anymore? Was that the comment? Yeah. So I finished Celeste SMC. I'm not topping it. Like that's a big thing, is I'm not going to make something that is going to be received any better than Celeste SMC was. So I have little to no motivation of making something that's like it would have an intent of being better than or equivalent to in terms of like polish and effort and all that, because that was 3 years. If I do another 3-year minimum project, I'm already going to be graduating college. I'm going to be like in the workforce and being an adult and all that fun stuff. Like
that's still do it.
I could still do it, but do I really want to?
Right.
Not really. Having done Celeste SMC, that's a thing that I'm going to do once. I'm not going to do that again. Or at least in the same way that I did it.
Gotcha.
However, there's still a few things that I do want to do with Super Mario World. One of those is, surprisingly enough, making another hack. However, that hack is not going to be accessible to really anyone. Because...
Oh god, I was going to talk about this later, but please continue.
Yeah, so... I'm going to give credit to both TJB and Metballs. TJB for making a hack that some may know as Midair Mastery. It's a pretty short hack, but it's entirely centered around midairs, and it's only been beaten by, I believe, 4 people? Including TJB. So TJB made it, he beat it. Metballs was the first clear. of it. Not many people know of him, but he's honestly one of the best Mario World players I think in the world. Meatballs is crazy good at the game. Then there was me, and I wish I remembered the other person that beat it. But I'm pretty sure another person beat it after I did. But there's only like 4 people in the world that have ever beaten this hack. I want to make a hack that's in revenge to this one. A hack
Yikes.
that's even going to challenge, like, the people that have been challenged by it. Like, there's only 4 people that can beat this hack, and I want to make something that's even harder and more aggressive and more difficult than that one. So, it's not supposed to be accessible. It's not supposed to be for everyone, but I know my audience. My audience is a couple people. But I want to make something that challenges me, that challenges TJB, that challenges Meatballs, that challenges this other person, and I want to make something like really cool with it. But it's also going to be ridiculously hard. So that's my current personal project.
Yeah.
Though
I
the
hear
other
that, though. Like going
though
to-
the
Oh,
other
sorry.
thing is I am still like, I guess, drawn into or like interested in doing collabs. So like, if I were to work on a small team with a couple people and maybe make a level here and there, or maybe make a couple sprites or an Uber ASM, I'm willing to do that and work with other people and make some small things. But I don't want to make an entire hack on my own that's supposed to be accessible and like for a large majority of people to access and play and enjoy. I want to make something that's either for me, that's way out of anyone's league, like anything that's supposed to be remotely playable, or something that's with a group of people.
So,
But other than that, I have no interest.
speaking of doing something with a group of people, have you ever thought about entering like Hack Jam when that happens? And if so, like, who would be like your dream team? Who would be your collabers? Who would you want to work with for Hack Jam to make just the best thing that you possibly could?
So, funny thing about Hack Jam, I actually did have a team for Hack Jam, and we just didn't end up finishing our project. Life got in the way. We wanted to do other things, and also our scope kind of went above what Hack Jam was looking for, but it got too far to where we couldn't end up finishing it.
And real quick, Hack Jam is in another event on SMW Central.
Yes.
Basically, what it is like you can work with a group of people, and the task is to make a small little hack or level with the group of people.
Kind of like a game jam, but with Mario.
Yeah,
hacks?
exactly. It's
Okay.
like a game jam. Yeah,
Cool.
like an
Yeah,
indie
that's
game
cool.
jam on itch.io. Or like a mod jam on CurseForge. There's like those jams are popular, and then this, I think that they're doing a second one now, Hack Jam, but the most recent one was the first one that they ever did.
Yeah,
Wow.
I'm not too sure what SMW Essential is doing behind the scenes anymore, because I'm not really doing
Right.
a whole lot. My access to SMW and the whole community is still pretty limited, but I've started opening myself up a little bit more. Like, I only rejoined the SMW Central Discord server a couple days ago. I had left it for about 2 months, just as a little escape. But
Yeah. I'm only in Third Wall's Discord now. The SMW Kaiser ROM hacking community. Or ROM hacking support,
yeah,
whatever.
that one.
That's the only one that I'm in, just because there's actually questions there that I can answer. And it feels good helping people with
For sure.
problems. I like doing that. I know you've helped me out a few times with different things
Yeah.
that I was clueless on. You and Fernap and SJ, I'd say, are the big 3 that definitely got me as interested in it as I am. And kind of learning the basics of ASM. I'll never be as good as, like, those 3 people, you and Fernap and SJ and Sweet Dude and Atari and, all those other great people that are in the Discord.
Shoutouts to Kevin M, who does literally
Oh,
everything.
yeah, and Kevin M. I'll never
Who
be
has, I'm pretty sure he has, like, I know he has over 500 submissions on SMW Central. I'm pretty sure he makes up, like, at least 10% of all music on the site.
That's like
Wow.
Hooded Edge as well, like all that music.
Yeah, Hooded Edge as well. He makes a lot of music.
And I like how you can tell when it's a Hooded Edge port because of the come on. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
What are you talking about? What is this?
Whenever you're making a port, like a song for, I'm gonna explain this in the way that I know how, because I don't know how. So I'm gonna explain it in the way that it's been explained to me by Fire 150. Okay. So basically, you have like a select amount of samples that you can use on 8 channels, and something that you can, well, shit. So there's like sample groups, right? And Hooded Edge uses the same sample groups, in a lot of his ports, a lot of their ports rather, and one of them is like this one that goes like, "Come on," and you can tell immediately that it's one of their ports because you hear the "Come on."
There's nothing better than a well-placed woo or come on, and just
I agree.
a nice
yeah.
poppy sound.
There's a few songs that I've heard on SMW Central that you just hear "Come on." I don't even have to look who made it. I just know immediately that it's Hooded Edge. And they have like the same, like, a lot of their music is like Mega Man X-y, and like a lot of it's Touhou ports. It's great. It's like, it's really good. It's just very, I guess, iconic. Not like talking shit, it's good. It's really good.
Okay,
it's just it's a very iconic creator. I hope I'm right here. I think I'm right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So hold on, can I get back to a question that was never fully answered and I never got done
sure.
asking it? So it was like the assets that I was impressed with, and I kind of want to like go through them, and we stopped on the first one and just like
we got way out there,
a different direction, but I think these are really cool, and I think they each kind of deserve some words. So first of all, did you the strawberries that follow you, did you reuse the code that I can't remember who else developed
that was LX5, and I didn't reuse their code.
Okay.
I wrote the strawberry following code from scratch.
That's so cool.
Most of the code that I wrote was done from scratch. I referenced like tutorials, obviously, and for like the bare bones basics. And if there was something similar that existed, I would reference it and make it work for me. But yeah.
So I'm just kind of go through here. So like the wall jumps, those were already a thing, right?
Yeah, the wall jump. So fun thing with the wall jump code is that there's a lot of different versions of it, and the version I chose was not a perfect version on its own, at least for what I wanted to do with it. So back for even the relay race in 2019, myself, Kaiserman, and D4 all worked on it and tweaked it very slightly to make it feel a bit better. And even then, there was still a couple problems with it. And there was one really funny one where I took out a single line of code and it felt like 10 times better instantly. And I was just so mad. I was like, wow, like this one thing was holding it back.
Yeah, you said.
But yeah,
in like the first box, you're like, one of the first boxes was the text boxes. Was like saying, you gotta hang on the wall for like a split second before you jump, or else it won't like register. Like, is that intentional? Like, did you want that in there, or was that just?
Yeah. It's supposed to be so you don't just instantly get your wall jump, but also because I didn't want people complaining, so I was just like, hey, do it for like at least a few frames, and then you should be good to go.
Gotcha.
But yeah.
Okay. So like the dashes you already talked about. For the dashes, I actually have a question on this. Did you normalize the vectors, if you know what I mean? Like,
oh no.
Oh, okay. So like,
no, it's
if you go diagonal, you get like double power, like in the X and Y direction.
Yeah. So if you're you're given a flat 63 speed in in either north, south, east, or west. So if you're going right, you get 63. If you're going left, you get 63. If you're going up and right, you get 63 up and 63 right.
So you'd get in that direction, you'd get this. What's 2 times 63?
That's a
126.
fantastic question.
126. You get the square root of 126. Is what you
Which
get,
is
right?
which is slightly above some
63.
number.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Because I was wondering that. I was looking at it. I was like, you get so like the
The diagonals give you a lot.
yeah. It's kind of like really crazy how much it gives you, but that's cool. I mean, that's how the speedrunners kind of like it, like things that get you the edge. Okay, so the cosmic blocks. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but like the
I
things that
do.
you like go through. Okay. So
Give me 1 second. I'm just curious of what the okay. It's 89 speed going on the diagonal. I just needed to do the math for it because it was bugging me.
gotcha.
But yeah, so you do go faster overall. But the dream blocks, honestly, those are probably one of the jankiest things that I left janky in the hack, because just underlying ways of how it works, with block interaction and making it solid versus making it not solid when I want it to be, versus it interacting with sprites differently, versus using like the dash versus not dash, and handling it when you run into a wall on accident, and making it so you don't get soft locked, but also so it doesn't kill you all the time. There's a lot of stuff going on for that, and I can't really explain it a whole lot more than beyond. At this point, it's just dark magic, and I'm just willing to accept that.
Right on. Okay. So the gooey surfaces at like that, like when you touch them and then jump off of them, then there's like a death hitbox there.
Yeah, that was another resource that I didn't make. I would have made it if it wasn't out there, but Dida IV wrote a pretty generalized piece of code that allows you to like update blocks. So you can stand on a block and then have it do something like later, and it happened per block. So I just used her asset for it, and tweaked it so that it behaved the way I wanted it to. So it was with the dust bunnies. But yeah, that was primarily her code base.
Okay, cool. So the cloud platforms now, like because there's two versions. There's one that's like kind of water adaptation, and then the other one.
Right, so the cloud platforms, those were, I drew from the SMW Springboard, in fact. So not all of the code was like original or based off of what anyone else wrote. It was acting as a spring to some extent.
Gotcha.
But I tweaked it so that it felt like a little bit different. So it was still custom, but it felt in a way, I guess, familiar. Like, oh, if I hold jump, I'm gonna get a bigger bounce. If I don't hold jump, I'm gonna get a little hop. And then the blue one is always active, but the pink one disappears after you use it once, and then it'll reappear. Those were just taken from Celeste, obviously. Right. That mechanic. I had to code it myself, but the idea was taken from Celeste.
Cool. The bubbles seem. You even said this in the interview with Grand Pooh Bear. You said like the bubbles are probably the easiest one.
Yeah, the bubbles were pretty simple. It was, at the end of the day, it was just fix Mario, like put Mario inside the bubble, so set his position, and then give the bubble some speed depending on the D-pad, and that was it.
Yeah.
And have it happen for a certain amount of time, or do it endlessly if it's a red bubble.
Right. Still like a really cool mechanic.
Simple.
The golden feathers, that seems kind of hard.
Golden Feather was fun. So that was one of the things where I actually had to map out my idea and planning on paper. Normally I don't have to do that. I just kind of go in the editor and start having fun. But I had to plan it on paper because I wanted it to feel fluid, where, rather than only being able to go up, diagonal, and right, like up, down, left, right, and then diagonals, I wanted it to actually feel like it was more than like just that, where I actually had like 360 movement. Obviously, That's not possible with just a D-pad, So I had to figure out how to make it so that it felt like there was a curve to it, and the angle was changing more precisely than just on those 8 directions. So that was pretty complicated. At the time, it was pretty complicated. I think if I were to do it differently now, it'd be a little bit easier, given that I've had a few more years of experience with assembly. But yeah, that was a fun one to make, and I think at the end of the day, it felt pretty fluid. Also, I know that Third Wall, he has, I'm pretty sure, like a PlayStation 3 controller or whatever that he generally uses. He plays on D-pad, but specifically with the feather, I find it really funny. He said that he plays with the joystick. So it's actually funny that like a physical hardware thing from something that wasn't on the Super Nintendo is actually being used for Super Nintendo, and it feels the way it does. I just found that kind of interesting.
Yeah, that I didn't even think about the fact that there's curve to it, like, because it's not like a mouse. Like you can't just like turn around on a dime. Like you have to like work in the fact that if they pulled left, if they're going right, it has to like do like this whole like turning around,
right?
Process. So that's cool. Okay, so where are we? Oh yeah, the Celeste thwomps. Like, did you use the thwomp for that and like just
no,
put ground around
those
it?
were entirely from scratch. Those are the Kevin blocks. Those were done from scratch. Those are a pain in the butt. Mainly because they are solid sprites. And solid sprites in Super Mario World are inherently pretty awful to work with when you're doing anything custom with them. Well, at least with custom sizes. They're pretty awful. So sometimes you'll see them like dash into the thwomp or the Kevin and it won't work. Or they'll stand on it, do some weird jump, and they'll clip through a wall. That's all just because solid sprites are weird, and at the time, I didn't know how to make it work any better than it does now, and I just never decided to fix it. I've now learned that there's some other methods that can be used to make solid sprites a little easier to work with and less wonky, but, I mean, what's done is done, and I'm happy with how they are.
Yeah, I have a question about that later, but we'll finish this list and then I'll ask it. The sideways springs on the walls, like, were those hard, or were those just kind of like, they remind me of the penguins, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, those were fairly simple. It was just set Mario's speed as soon as you touch it, or set a sprite speed if a sprite interacts with it. Those were not too difficult to do. And then I have a couple where it's a spring, but when you hit it, it starts falling. That was also not too bad to implement, but I had fun with it. Especially recreating one of the things from Celeste Summit Seaside. What was... I don't know. I heard a noise and got scared. Spooky.
But, okay, so actually, did I miss anything that you made that you might want to talk about?
Yeah, I think the two notable ones... Actually, there's a few... but two of them are similar. One of them is the Battle and Fight, which is honestly like one of the coolest things I think I've ever made. It's insanely customizable for like my purposes, where I can say, oh, I want it to move like a tile to the left instead of where it already is. I can do that with one very simple change. Or I want it to shoot 2 fireballs instead of 1 at a time. Easy to do that, and it's very easy to work with. And the cool thing with the Battle and Fight was that it was pretty uncharted territory, where having a boss fight with checkpoints was like, wait a minute, what is this? Like, how can a boss fight have checkpoints? I know that the original Jump did that with its final boss fight, but it was kind of different, where it was a big boss, but if you got to a certain health damage to it, you get a checkpoint, so you don't have to do that damage again. But it wasn't done with a level. It was a single room, it was a single boss, and that's all it really did. So getting that to work was very finicky and took a lot of effort. but I got it to work, and I'm really happy with the results, where you can have a boss fight, die in the middle of it, but have it be right there ready for you to hit it again and keep going.
Yeah, that's
And
kind of
then,
cool.
go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say like how, the original material of Celeste, right, is and having like bosses with checkpoints. That is just like kind of like a simple idea, right? But it's never really been done in Super Mario World ROM hacks,
Right.
at least. So like, it's just weird how like having a different, trying to emulate something, right, just kind of breaks ground in this thing that's been around for kind of forever. I mean, not forever, but like a very long time at least. And yeah, it's just a good way to. I never thought about that. Like a good way to like. I don't know what's the word.
Like, implement it, maybe?
Kind of like stir the pot, I guess, in this.
To the meta.
Yeah, exactly.
Speaking of stirring the pot and adding to the meta, is the other thing that I wanted to mention, was all of the music code that I wrote, SPC code, was stuff that really hadn't ever been done in a full game, like in a full hack before. People have done things. I know one example was by both LX5 and Vitor have done this, where you jump in the water and it makes the music echo, or it lowers the volume, or it does this cool thing with the instruments, and
Right.
that's all well and cool and good, but it was all done in a test environment. It never really got done. Nothing really ever came of it beyond that. I wanted to change that and have it so that not only was it a thing that I learned how to do, but it was a thing that I felt could actually be used in a full-scale hack. So I did that with a few levels. I did that with Golden Ridge, where the direction that the wind blows in the second part, in like the second major checkpoint, actually influences how the music plays. So if the wind is blowing from the right, it's a very subtle change, but you can hear the wind blowing stronger in the right ear. If it's blowing from the left, likewise, it'll happen from the left. And if there's no wind and it's neutral, it'll play the same in both ears. So it's a very minor change, but it's an effect that I thought was really cool, and I wanted to implement that.
Right.
And then I did the same, or I did a different thing in Reflection, where if you enter the water, lowers the volume, creates an echo, removes an instrument, so it feels like you're actually underwater, and there's an audible difference there, and as soon as you get out of the water, you hear the music again.
Adds to the immersion.
Right. Same thing with Core, where as you get more checkpoints, there's more instruments added, and there's more progression to the song. So as soon as you enter the level the first time, you hear, I think, one piano, and that's it. But as soon as you get that first checkpoint, once you have all the hearts, the song immediately picks up, and it's like, oh, it's starting to go again. And as soon as you enter a new major checkpoint, more of the song gets added.
Did you reference
then-
the... Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Did you reference the Yoshi code? Like, when you land on Yoshi, now, like, there's drums playing or something? Like that?
I wanted to, but that code, for better or for worse, is just not really that helpful for any of my purposes, so I wrote
Gotcha.
most of it from scratch. And then the last main SPC code that I did was the rhythm blocks in Farewell, which is another asset that I'm really proud of, where the blocks tie to the music. Now, that was done in Yump 2. I'm aware of Yump 2 doing it. I think that code was written by Louis. But that, like where the blocks sync to the music. But I wanted to do it where it didn't require resetting the music. I wanted the music to continue playing and the beat to be constant. So I implemented my own version of it, and that's what ended up being in the final hack. And I'm really proud of how that ended up sounding and working.
Cool. Yeah, I have a question on the sound, though. You said that you left your... in the Grand Pooh Bear interview, you said that you left your... For testing it, the console on like overnight or something like that?
Yeah,
So what's up with that?
there was a problem where if the song reached FFFF ticks and overflowed, it would continue working fine until the player died. Well, once the player died, the song would be desynced with the counter that I had that handled changing the blocks. So the beat would be off after FFFF ticks. So I
Gotcha.
needed to figure out how to make that not happen. So it worked for only like I think 10 to 15 minutes the first time. And then it worked for an hour before it broke again. And then I had to make even more changes, and eventually I got it to work as well as it does now. But to make sure that it worked, I would turn on my console, enter the level, and what I would do is I would put a weight on my controller so that Mario would constantly be walking right, so he would keep walking into the pit and die. So that when I
Gotcha.
woke up in the morning, he would still be dying, but the music would still be playing. So I would turn on the TV, see if it worked, and if it did, great. And if it didn't, I'd have to do another overnight test.
Yikes. That's some testing.
So FFF is what in decimal, like 3,000 something?
FFFF is 65,535.
Oh, 4Fs. I thought you said 3Fs. Damn. I was sitting there doing the math in my head.
Yeah, it's 16 to the 4th, right?
Or
Um,
2 to the power 16.
Right, yeah.
Alright, so that takes all night to... I guess that would take all night to get through, huh? That's a lot of ticks.
Yeah. I mean, the ticks happen pretty fast, but like there was a point where I needed to go through like 3 cycles of FFFF ticks, and it was a mess. But also, I would rather do an overnight test than turn on my like turn on the console, set it up, and then go do something for like 3 or 4 hours and then come back. So I was just like, let's just do it overnight. Easier for me.
Right on. So, I kind of want to ask, have you ever had the thought, like, this would be so much easier to do, like, in Unity or some other program? Like, have you ever thought about making your own video game?
I've thought of making my own video game, but I just didn't really have the interest at the time to do that. I just enjoyed messing around with Mario. Like, Mario Maker was cool. I could make my own Mario levels I wanted to do as a kid. I can do it now. And then I could do it with Super Mario World. So it was more just focused on, wow, I can make my own Mario level. How cool is that? And then it shifted into, oh, wow, I can take Mario and do this custom code thing with it. And I found, like, the modding aspect of it really cool, because it's still, like, the Mario we all know and love.
Right.
But I'm doing my own twist on it, and that felt really cool. And I just got so invested that I never really considered, like, oh, I could just make my own entire separate video game. But also, having Super Mario World as an engine to work off of, it's effectively a game engine at this point, given how much it's been hacked to hell.
Every ROM hack's like an indie game at this point.
Right. But it's effectively its own game engine, so it's like, oh, I have a basis for a platformer. Now I can go off of that and say, I have a platformer. Now let's make something cool out of it. So I can just focus on making levels and doing things rather than worrying about all the back end and having to worry about a camera system and, like, interaction and, like, characters
Colliders
and
stuff
colliders, all that fun stuff.
Yeah.
Didn't have to worry about all that. And when I was new to programming, I didn't want to deal with all that. I wanted to make a level. So.
And another benefit is, like, people are going to play a Mario ROM hack. Like, when you create an indie game, like, you don't know who's going to play it or who's going to be interested in it. Like, people know, like, the basics of SMW or, like, Super Mario Maker. Like, people are going to play it just because it's easy and convenient to them. So you got that, like, quick feedback that is, nice,
Yeah.
So, unless you have anything else to add, Red, I was thinking Twitter questions.
Yeah, that's fine. Are there any questions on the list that you would kind of want to speak on?
Not specifically, no. I'm looking through it right now.
Or I was asking Mark.
Oh.
I think that there might be the liking old Kaizo or new Kaizo more. I think is an interesting question.
Okay, cool.
And maybe some more out of that section, but I can freely admit that I don't really play a whole lot of Kaizo. I will, like, people can like say, wait, you beat Omega Fennel or you do mid-airs, like how do you not play Mario? I don't play hacks. I get good at specific things. I get good at mid-airs, but I don't really play hacks. I get good at Omega Fennel, but I don't play Casio. Like,
gotcha.
Now, at the end of the day, whether I like old Kaizo or new Kaizo more, honestly, I could go either way. Like, I find a charm with the older Kaizos where there's not really a whole lot going on. It's just simple platforming, and it's still hard. But I can also look at new Kaizo and appreciate, wow, this looks very interesting and cool. And like, oh, if I did a shell jump into another shell jump and changed into a spin jump from motor skills or whatever, like, that looks cool. And I can show that to like a friend of mine and they say, wow, that looks really cool, how do you do that? But at the end of the day, I don't really have a preference for either one. I think like either one has their own merit to it.
Right on.
Here's a good one. What would you change about the Mario community as a whole?
So this might get on a bit of a... So...
If it gets too deep or gets too whatever, I can just
I was going to say, I don't know how, like... It's going to be hard to talk about, like, without getting...
Yeah, Kinkerton should leave. I think we should all agree on that, right? That's number one.
Yeah,
get him out of here.
I'm the big downfall of the SMW community. No, I'm curious. I think it's something that we have to address, because obviously the SMW community being the way it is right now and recent events that happened, it's all hush-hush, which I don't think it should be, really.
I mean, to be honest, I don't know what recent events have been going on.
I mean,
you can DM me later, but
yeah.
I think I do have one major thing I want to talk about, and that's both play testing and just generally playing hacks, and specifically like streaming and like that whole thing. I see, and this is a pretty general thing. I don't want this to target any individual, and no individual should feel targeted specifically. And because this is a general thing that I see, and it's actually a reason why I don't really watch a whole lot of Mario World hack playing anymore. A lot of the time, I look at like some streams, and people will blame the creator or blame the level for a death when it was very clearly within the player's control or within their fault. And it's not a thing that I really enjoy looking at, because as a creator, I can make something and know that it works consistently and is fine, and it can get play tested, and someone will be like, yeah, this is fine, but some other person will play it, look at it, and say, oh no, why is it built this way? This should be working, and then blame the level or blame the creator for making something when they can change their strategy in order to get through it more consistently. Yeah. Having just play tested a hack a few months ago and having played a couple hacks recently, very rarely did I look at the level and say, this is the creator's fault, this is the level's fault, and not my fault. I would say, okay, what actually killed me? What went wrong? How can I change the way I am playing in order to get through this? And there were a few moments where I looked at the level and said, okay, this could be done. Like, the level could be changed a bit differently to be, like, a little bit more favorable towards the player. But I would still take the death as my fault, even if it could be ambiguous. But I would make note of ambiguous things and say, hey, creator, like, this could be considered your fault. I don't think it is, but someone else might think it is, and have them consider that. And right. I don't appreciate it when people will immediately call out creators, because it then creates, like, like sort of an echo chamber, like within chats as well, where they'll blame a creator or they'll think certain ways of a creator, and I'm not a fan of that. Because creators put in so much effort to make the hacks that they do, and for it to get, berated, might be a bit of an overstatement, but in some aspects it's not.
But I hear what you're saying though, like the echo chamber,
the criticism.
the criticism in the echo chamber,
Yeah.
like it's just like, I don't know.
All three of us are creators. We've all seen that happen to stuff that we've made, I'm sure. Red with you and us and Mario Maker.
Right. Like there's a difference between constructive and criticism and just outright like pooping on a hack. Like it's like there's a difference. And what's actually funny was the first hack I ever made, Tesla World, was not good, and people called it out like even back then that this is a bad hack. Like it was, and this is 2017 or like late 2017. This is a while ago. Even then it was considered garbage, and back then like it hurt in the moment, but I mean I eventually got better and improved and made some cool things out of it, but not everyone does. And I think that that's a really unfortunate thing, because one person might make a hack, put it out, it gets called garbage, everyone thinks, oh, it's like it's a copy of this, copy of that, and like they see that and say, oh, like if that's how this community is, then I don't want to be a part of it. When deep down they might have some really cool ideas, and if they apply themselves and go at it for a couple of years, they can make some really cool things out of it. But they don't, and it's entirely untapped potential, and it gets completely thrown away by a few bad comments.
Yeah, no, I totally.
And I just think that that's incredibly unfortunate. I mean, me, like I got through it, and I eventually made Celeste SMC, which was pretty popular, cool.
Yeah.
But there could be plenty of people that are out there. There are plenty of people that are out there that have untapped potential, and aren't using it because they got bad comments. I don't know like individuals that have that potential, but that's the problem. I don't know who they are because they didn't keep going with it because of these comments.
Oh yeah, I've seen that happen with creators, and that's just unfortunate. There was I'm not gonna name any names. If you know, you know. That happened, and the streamer he felt terrible. He apologized to the creator about like dogging on his hack, because he kind of made it, the creator of the ROM hack made it public just how much the words like fucking hurt him, and the streamer apologized, which is nice. And we talked about this a little bit with Talk is the Casual, like 2 weeks ago.
Definitely,
about how much I guess bitching and complaining really affects the creator, because people don't realize that it's like someone that's probably going to show up in Twitch chat and like hang out while you're playing their game. It's not like a big gaming corporation, because like if I'm playing Call of Duty and I bitch about Call of Duty, the devs of Call of Duty aren't hanging out in my Twitch chat,
and they might
watching me. Well, they might be, but it's a good possibility that they're not, and plus they don't care. But when you're talking about these small developers that are like, literally just three guys, like us three, right?
Right.
Like,
or like experience my creation, and then they're just like, this sucks, and you're like,
yeah, this is terrible.
I feel really lucky because when I first started, I started with Super Mario Maker 2, and I would give my levels to Mike, and he was just like, really cool about it, even if they were crap. Like in the beginning, they were definitely crap, and he was just like, oh yeah, you did really well with it. Like he'd point out like the good parts of the level, and just like beat it and be like, yeah, it was cool.
So on a positive note, are there any streamers that have played some of your stuff that like you kind of, I guess, maybe took a lot from criticism wise? Because I know mine is like Juzzcook and Tofu, who I took the most constructive criticism from, watching them play my hacks. Do you have any streamers like that?
Constructive criticisms for the hack?
Yeah. That kind of helped make you who you are today.
For who I am today, I'd say not really any, like, so this is going to be kind of a weird answer, but there's very few, mainly because the time span between me releasing Pickle World and me releasing Celeste SMC was a few years. It was quite a long time. And like that whole span, like at the time of Pickle World, it's so far in the past that I don't really remember a whole lot from it. But constructive criticisms on Celeste.smc, I think, were more people that had good criticisms for Celeste.smc were mainly just playtesters. But Third Wall was one, Mighty Mouse, Seokadelic, and I think Seo, they provided really good feedback. I think probably some of the best for the hack.
Seo's just a nice person. I've hung out in a few of their streams.
Seo is so nice. They're also very good at Pokemon.
Oh. I just know from like the Bun Bun games how they're a great creator as well.
For sure.
Speaking of testing and like watching people play your hack, do you have anything that you're just like, you look at when people are playing it now and you're like, man, I wish I could change that? Or I know there's like patches and whatever, but is there anything that's like just insurmountably annoying?
With Celeste.smc, the only thing that I would want to get rid of are the damn crashes.
Yeah.
It's like, I believe I've done the best I can, but I'm at a point where I don't want to invest any more effort into the hack, and I honestly think that it's fine as is. I have no desires to make any changes. I think that it's fine in its current state, and it should remain as just a 1.0. This is it.
But there's nothing, like the thing that I think of that would drive me nuts is the, and maybe it doesn't for you, but like when you grab a strawberry and it saves it, but then it's there again. You know what I mean? Like when you already have it, would you?
Yeah.
Does that bug you at all?
That was a thing that bugged me in the past because I couldn't figure out how to like turn it blue. Because that was the big thing, was in Celeste, once it's collected, it turns blue or it turns gray, whatever.
Right.
And with Super Mario World, with blocks specifically, that's kind of difficult to do, because the strawberries are a block. But when you touch the block, it then spawns a sprite, and the sprite is what follows you. But getting all of that to work coherently, when I made all that, was a pain in the butt. And I just...
Right.
decided to not worry about it. And at the end of the day, I kind of skirted around the issue by adding numbers to all the strawberries. So it's like, oh, I already collected strawberry number 5, so I don't need to worry about strawberry number 5. But oh, there's strawberry number 6. Time to get that one. I just kind of avoided the issue by doing that and called it a day.
Yeah, no, that's totally fair.
There was a lot of min-maxing and budgeting, like, how much effort do I really want to spend on this? Like, if it had a simple, good enough solution, sometimes I'd take it.
For sure. Yeah, you're definitely efficient. All right, do you want to move on to Twitter questions, King?
Yeah, sure. You good with that?
For sure.
Alright, so the first one is from Awesome Guy. We already touched on part of this, but I want to ask the first part of the question. How do you feel about people's reactions playing Celeste.smc, and then have you considered making another hack? And then they said, I loved watching it myself and playing the game, so big shoutouts for sure. So, main thing I want to know is, how do you feel about watching people play Celeste.smc?
Well, first of all, thanks a ton for the question, and thanks to everyone that did ask questions. I don't know if we're getting to all of them, but thank you.
No, just skim it. There's a few in here that are kind of odd.
But yeah, thanks also for playing the hack. I'm glad you enjoyed it. But seeing the reactions to everyone playing it was such a breath of fresh air. Because it was like, I think that the day of release is probably going to stick with me for a long time. But, like, that morning I got up, I had an 8 a.m. class, I went to class, came back with breakfast, ate breakfast, put out the hack, and just I spent the rest of the day just watching people play it.
Right.
I only left the room to go to classes, but beyond that, like I skipped out on everything else that I would have otherwise been doing just to watch people play it as I'm finally done, and to see people's like excitement for playing it and like finding strawberries and beating levels and doing tricks. It was incredible to it finally be done. And yeah. I know, like, I think it was Barb, he beat the hack in like 6 hours and was done with Farewell. I was just like, damn, okay. But I mean, just like for him, like, he would beat it as quickly as he did. Being able to see, like, wow, he actually experienced, like, everything that there was, but he really enjoyed it. Was awesome. And, like, Pooh, I think he did, like, a 12-hour stream, like, just 100% of the game in a single sitting. But just to see people love the game as much as they did upon immediate release. And then even the days following, I wasn't on Twitch 24/7 at that point, but I was still on it very actively, and watching as many people play it as they did was incredible. And then going even outside of the Super Mario World community, there were people in the Celeste community, whether speedrunners or modders alike, people that have never touched a Super Mario World hack said, oh, let me try Celeste SMC. And there were people playing it from a completely new community, and that was even more surprising to me, that someone wanted to do that, or individuals wanted to do that, where they saw it and said, yeah, I'll give it a shot. And it was just incredible for it to actually like work out as well as it did, and I'm really, really happy with how it all turned out.
Yeah, it was like the talk of the town for a while. Like, I'd go into chats and everybody was talking about it. Like, it was pretty awesome. So
yeah, it was like the big thing. Like, everybody was excited for it. Everybody and their mom was excited for Celeste SMC. Like, if I would have walked downstairs and I would have said, hey mom, are you excited for Celeste SMC? She would have said, hell yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my mom also was as well. My parents were.
Oh, were they really supportive about it?
I'll give shout outs to them too while we're at it. But my parents and my aunt and uncle, those four like family members have been just so overwhelmingly supportive of this hobby and like
That's
of what
awesome.
I've been doing.
Yeah.
And I mean, originally it was like what's this dumb Mario thing, right? I mean, like, that's what everyone thinks, like, it's just a dumb Mario thing. But after like it actually went somewhere, like with like GDQ in 2019, and me working on it for as long as I did, and it turning into something, was like they've been so supportive. And my uncle even beat Celeste SMC. Having never touched a Super Mario World ROM hack, he was like, you know what, I'm going to play it.
Holy
and
crap.
He played it, and he beat it. Granted, I'll say this, he did play through it with save states originally, just to figure out the tricks and all that. But he went back through without save states, without slowdown, and he beat it.
Holy crap.
That's
like,
awesome, dude.
He's a god gamer. Like, he's very good. Also, he has 201 berries in the original Celeste. The only golden he doesn't have is Farewell, and for good reason. It's Farewell. But he is very good, and like, he played through it, and like, it's just them being as supportive as they were is awesome, and especially when it finally released.
Yeah. If my parents are just like, that's nice. Like, they don't
care.
care.
Exactly. Mine don't really care. They're like, are you still doing that computer thing? And I'm like, yep. They're like, nice. They don't. It's not like they just don't understand. You know, there's just a barrier.
I mean, there's obviously still like some like there's still a little bit of barrier and lack of understanding, but that's obviously because they're not doing it as much as I am.
Yeah. Right. I don't think you could sit there and explain to them all of the processes, all of the coding, all of the inserting, whatever, and they still wouldn't understand the amount of work. But that's just like, if they, sat down and made it their own hobby, they probably would. But that's something I'll never be able to get through to my mom. I mean, I don't really talk to her about Mario, but if I did, there's just no way that would ever become a concrete thing. Remember when I first released the ROM hack, I told my mom, and she was like, "Oh, that's nice. Like, that's nice, sweetie."
Yeah.
She didn't really understand.
But, I don't know.
Also, my friends in college have been really supportive of it too. They they were really excited for the release, and I actually ran into them when I was walking back to my room, and they were like, "Hey, good luck with the release, and I hope it goes well and all that." And it just means a lot. And I mean, who knows? One of my friends might be listening to this at some point in the future, and if you're that friend or if you're that family member that is listening to this, I love you. You're awesome. Aww. And I really appreciate all your support.
That's sweet.
That is nice.
Yeah. All right.
Wholesome.
Yeah, it's very wholesome. We need more wholesome moments like that. We do. So Isherwood asks, what's your background in game development, and have you worked on any other games or level design prior to Celeste SMC? Which we already touched a little bit on that.
Yeah, it's been kind of touched on, but just to recap, I started with Super Mario Maker 1. Really was my first Mario level designing type thing, and then I started with Super Mario World hacking and very early 2017, and I'm here now.
Right
so here's one of those oddball questions. It's a follow-up to last week. Buckaroodle asked chess_WC, how powerful would you have to throw a hot dog for it to orbit the Earth? And Chess said not that hard. So Buckaroodle asks you, how would one retrieve a hot dog that is orbiting the Earth after being launched up there about a week ago?
Carefully.
I hope that's just I hope that's just an ongoing thing, you know? I hope they respond again to that.
It's true though.
Also, that's my entire answer. You're not gonna get any more than
just
that.
Carefully.
Just carefully.
Gotta plan it out.
So this is a good question that I don't think we actually touched on. What was the hardest part about making Celeste.smc?
It's a good question. I mean, I guess there are a few things, but I think okay, we'll answer it a few different ways and see if that answers your question the way you want me to. Hardest individual asset to make, I think, was the battle and fight, just because of how complicated it is and how many things are going on. The laser alone took me a very long time to figure out how to render and how to make it interact with the player, and even then it's still very buggy, but it works kind of. That boss fight went through 10 major revisions before it got to what it is now. So asset wise, that the hardest level to make was Farewell, without question. It's one of the longest levels ever made for a Kaizo hack. You look at the rest of the hack and you look at Farewell. Actually, let's actually make this comparison because I like making it. Imagine you take Quickie World, made by Evaldio. Credits to him. Imagine you take Quickie World and 100% it deathless. Do a 100% playthrough of the hack deathless. Don't worry about speed running. Don't worry about speed strats, all that fun stuff. Just beat every single level without dying. Now take Farewell in Celeste SMC and beat the level without dying. No speed strats. Don't worry about any of that. It would take you longer to beat Farewell than it would to take Quickie World 100%. That's how long of a level Farewell is. Or maybe they're about similar, but
beautiful.
Regardless, that's the kind of scope of a level where you're dealing with, where it is the size of an entire hack. All in one level.
That is nuts. Yeah.
That was definitely the hardest level to make, and that took several months. And completely on its own of just focused Farewell work.
And I'm sure testing that, there's no way you test that from the beginning every time, but I'm sure testing was still just arduous.
Testing of Farewell was its whole ordeal, because there was I had to have them test individual sections, the beat block section or the rhythm block section. That had to be tested in isolation because it wasn't working. like the first time around for testing, so I had them come back after they beat the rest of the level. Also, the final screen was probably one of the... I'd say the final screen was the most difficult individual checkpoint to make, but also one of the checkpoints I'm most proud of. It's about a minute long, but I am so proud of how that ended up playing out, and credits to CEO again. They died on the final up pipe a few times. I don't remember how many times, but they died there quite a bit. And there was no gray platform when they played that level. They're the reason why I added a gray platform at the end. So everyone that used that gray platform to beat the level on their first attempt, give credit to CEO. I felt so bad. They were the first person to beat the level, or to beat Farewell, but that was without a gray platform, and now there is one.
Yeah, had to nerf it.
Poor Sia. That's what I take from that.
Poor Sia. I think it took them 8 hours to beat the level, something like that.
Holy
or
crap.
to beat that screen, sorry. It was a screen. It was a checkpoint. It was a screen, it was a checkpoint. It was fun.
It's insane. So I'm guessing this is an inside joke, but Captain Quirk asks, first of all, how dare you? Is that an
How
inside
dare
joke,
me?
or is that just...
Absurd.
How dare me? How dare you?
Is that the whole answer?
That's my entire answer, and you'll get nothing more.
That is fantastic. So, TJB asks, can you do it midair? But it's a screenshot of a TikTok comment on one of their videos.
Can you do a midair? I'll flex a little bit. My highest, the most midairs I've ever done consecutively is 71.
Jesus Christ.
That is without video proof, though. It was done in a Discord voice call with a bunch of other Super Mario World people, and I got it on complete accident fluke, and there's only a few people that have ever seen that, but there's no video proof of it.
Was that in midair risers?
Yep, that was in midair risers. So it was 71 consecutive without stopping. But my best recorded attempt is 68. Not nice.
And for those who don't know, midair, like, that's a frame perfect trick, right? Like,
yes.
Yeah.
It's a very difficult trick,
They're
and
even
there's
hard to pass.
there's a good reason why you don't really see them in any hacks, because they're just that hard.
right.
But 68
now,
is my best recorded.
I've been passing RTA abuse. I forget who it's by.
Damon Tom, I believe.
Yeah, yes. And I can't do that stuff RTA. And there's like 4 midairs I think I've done so far. But again, that's all passing. It's not. And I have to sit there and like do the math for each midair. Not the math, but the frames constantly, because I don't understand midairs. I'll never understand midairs.
They are a difficult trick.
I don't know how people can get consistent with them at all.
So I can tell you, it's with doing nothing but mid-airs for a long period of time.
Right.
Just constantly.
That's literally the only way you can get good at them, is by just doing them constantly until you get it. And even having done like 68 of them in a row with proof, like I'm going to put in massive air quotes, fun thing that I did was I attempted 1,000 of them in a row to see how many I actually succeeded on. And I got about 700 of them. So I have a 70% consistency with them, and that's with all of the practice that I've done. So even then, they're still not a free trick.
Hold on, that was
very
with the
difficult.
TAS?
No, this was RTA. This was RTA. I attempted
that?
1,000 of them in a row.
RTA means real-time attack. It's
just as a human, I attempted 1,000 of them and was successful with 700-ish.
Okay. Oh, but not in a row, because I thought you just said that there was 68. That you
No, not in a row. I attempted 1,000, and I recorded every single attempt and whether it was successful or not. I have a
So you got
spreadsheet.
700 out of 1,000. Gotcha.
Yeah, I got 700 out of 1,000.
I mean,
I have a
that's
spreadsheet
insane.
of it.
Yeah,
I can put a link of it if
you want
someone's
to.
really
I can put it in
if
the
someone's really
description.
interested. I can include that.
Might as well throw it in there. Yeah. MarkAlarm's spreadsheet for mid-airs.
Some nerd watching will be all over that.
A good place to wrap this interview up, I think, is a question by Kevlin the Real Deal. They want to know. They said, "Mark, I'm going to the store. Do you need any milk?"
Fun thing, I was at the store yesterday and I already picked up milk, but thank you so much for offering. I really
Oh.
appreciate it.
That's very nice of them.
Right on. It's a good question.
That is a good question. You know, I don't think people ask about if someone needs milk that often.
Right.
You know? Like, I feel like no one ever asks me if I need milk. Like, the answer's usually no, because I don't really use milk for anything.
Exactly.
But I'd like to be asked it, you know? Like, hey, Kink, you need milk? I don't. The fact you have, like, him there, them there, rather, whatever. Hang on. Let me cut that out. The fact that you have them there to offer you milk is, something special.
Right on. All right. Well, thank you for for coming.
Yeah.
Of course, and thank you for having me. This is fun.
This is a lot of fun. We've been going for about 2 hours. This is going to be the longest episode.
Yeah.
Oh,
They keep getting
jeez.
longer.
They do. I think we should cap it around 2.5 hours, I think.
I think 2 hours is probably long enough. People are
2
like
hours.
struggling to get through them as it is, but
Yeah.
whatever. I like talking I mean, we have a lot to cover, so yeah, this is great.
It's either that or I'm going to have to go more heavy on the editing, which I don't really like doing.
Right.
But yeah, thank you so much for listening. And thank you, MarkAlarm, for, coming out and talking to us.
Of course, I really
For-
enjoyed doing it.
2 hours. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. All of MarkAlarm's... It feels weird just calling you Mark. I feel like I'm talking to my dad. My dad's name is Mark.
That's funny.
All of MarkAlarm's links will be in the description below, as well as the GitHub and the SMW Central page, where you can find Celeste.smc and apparently the mid-air spreadsheet as well, which will be interesting to look at for some reason. But if you enjoyed the episode, consider subscribing. We post these videos once a week on Saturdays, except next week we'll be taking off for Memorial Weekend. Other than that, I sincerely appreciate you listening. And if you guys have anything else to add, go for it.
Thanks for listening. See you later.